Greetings and salutations, Focus Up family. Welcome to the Sunday School pregame show, hosted by Brother Charles X and co-hosted by me myself, Mr. Nice Guy, nice as in the word Saint spelled backwards, and Brother Floyd X. This is going to be a new addition to the Focus Up family, and we wanted to give Brother Charles X a moment to shine, especially to give you some of that good news, because he was stretching out that news segment of the Focus Up show, and we want to get to the get. So again, we appreciate you watching on YouTube and various other platforms and checking us out live or on replay. And be sure to be back. This may not come weekly, but this will come when it comes, and Charles X will deliver it when he does. So let me pass it over to Brother Charles X. Salute to you, brother.
Thank you, brother. How you brothers doing this morning?
Doing all right.
Doing good.
All right. Well, I just briefly want to share, what I'm looking to accomplish with this particular segment as we move forward. The one of the more important things that I want to expose, with this show is dealing with the deceit promoted by what I call and what others call the ruling elite. There's a lot of issues that impact Americans, regardless of race, color, class, or creed, and oftentimes we're pitted against one another. But, from my perspective and others, we see that there's a head that, is interested in keeping this type of dysfunction, the narrative, if you will. So we're going to talk about the deceit that's being promoted by the ruling elite. We're going to be dealing with the domestic issues and social policies. Of course, we're going to be dealing with politics, both current, historical, local, and geopolitical, which is something that, our community is not always necessarily focused on and seeing how it impacts our community. So we're going to dive into that. We want to look to promote critical thinking. And then we're also going to be dealing with, based on how our community has been focused and has a certain amount of spirituality that exists within it. We want to be dealing with decoding the Bible at times, discussing prophecy. And also we want to be dealing with disaster preparedness, and the survival tools and strategies necessary, for dealing with various, civil unrest and problems that could evolve and materialize. We also want to deal with organizing and mobilizing a community in general. They say it takes a village to raise a child. I believe that is something that is true. And oftentimes, we find that we're stronger together than, segregated. So one thing that we would definitely want to deal with is always provide facts, statistics, and receipts, and not just conjecture. That's something that's very important, to this particular platform. So sometimes, we don't always agree being, our community on various subjects. But the one thing we're committed to do on this show is to be respectful to one another, but not hold back our passion. But we're always going to be respectable, and courteous of one another. So with that, brothers, I thank you for being here. And let's go ahead and dive into this topic, which we've titled J6, manufacture, premeditated, or spontaneous. So let's start with this question first, and I want to go ahead and just, throw it out there, to the brothers is, what is our understanding of why people assembled for the Save America March on that January 6th, 2021?
I mean, as I understand it, they were basically supporting Trump. They were basically there to say, look, we believe that the election was stolen, and we're here to support our guy, and we hopefully that the things will be done properly, that Pence will, step up and do his job and do whatever, Trump was trying to get him to do, and basically accomplish what they thought was the truth, which is that he wanted it by a landslide, because that's what he asserted. Whether that's true or not, yeah, that's something different.
Yeah, I agree with that, because I would think in the same sense, if Barack Obama called black people, hey, come down to the state capitol, we got to get this straightened out. You know how many black people would have been down there ready to go or to call the command at the command of the commander-in-chief, ready to make a move? I think that's what they went down there for, because their commander-in-chief called them.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And so my understanding as things were building up and on that particular election, it was without doubt that people who came there for sure believe not only then but right now today that there were so many voting irregularities that existed, that there was what many label the deep state was motivated to actually steal that election. There were a lot of different, again, various, situations that people could not understand. How is Joe Biden getting all these votes, leading up into this election when, he did not have the amount of attention. He didn't have, a lot of people attending, rallies, like Trump, because at that time, Trump, whenever he was throwing a rally, man, they had to rent out airport hangars and whatnot. Hundreds of thousands of people were showing up, and then, of course, when Biden was speaking and having various events, there just wasn't, the same level of participation, that existed. So,
hey, brother,
yes,
let me before I don't want to get too far away. Let me address that right now. Now, during
Yes,
this time, there was this thing called COVID going on.
Yes,
so,
sir.
So there was the Democrats that were not trying to organize big get-togethers and stuff like that because they were dealing with the COVID situation. The fact of the matter is, we had that one black presidential candidate or whatever, that one dude who literally died going to a Trump, one of his Trump rallies. I keep forgetting what is I used to get him in
Pizza Man. The Godfather.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, the reason why people weren't doing that is because they were trying to be sensible and respectable as far as, look, we're supposed to be distant. We're supposed to be wearing masks. One of the parties took COVID very seriously and the other party kind of did not. So that was one of the reasons for that. So I'm sorry. Go. Let me pass it back to you to continue why people were making these type of arguments.
Yes, sir. No, I would say there's no need to even apologize, brother, because that's a very valid point. A point that I'll acknowledge without any doubt is that for sure there was definitely a difference between those who were, Democrats and those who were right of center and Republicans, in terms of how they viewed COVID, and without doubt, there definitely wasn't a lot of events that were being, organized by the left, albeit there were definitely some. But even we just discount the various events that were taking place, we could just go and look at on the social media platforms when live coverage of these events were taking place, on either side. And it was not uncommon to go on YouTube or Facebook and see a Trump rally, taking place, and where there was hundreds of thousands of views, during those particular rallies. But then we would see Joe Biden speak nowhere near the numbers, and even in regards to going to the various social media platforms, throughout the campaign, you're talking about Trump had well over 10 plus million followers, if you will, on his various social platforms, whereas Biden just did not have that at all. So, I only just brought that point up is that to say that when people came there on that January 6th, day, many people absolutely felt that this election was being stolen, and misrepresented, and they came to hear Trump to enunciate, okay, well, what are some of the things that you are seeing in this campaign that is making you all feel this way, that are more objective versus subjective?
Let me ask a question. Are you equating the number of people that come out to the rally as to the number of people who voted for Trump?
No. What I would equate it with is just a sign and signal in terms of, who had the attention, whose campaign had that vigor, and that excitement surrounded it, whose campaign was more motivated to turn out to the polls, for what they believed in, and without doubt, many Democrats, if you remember the Democratic primaries that year, is, Biden, most people, especially young people, were not very excited about Biden at all. Many people were leaning more towards Bernie Sanders at that time, especially our people as well. You were leaning more towards him. So basically Biden became more of a de facto, a type of candidate where people were saying, hey, from the progressive and the liberal side were saying, hey, we don't want Trump, so we're willing to just go ahead and line up behind anybody but Trump. But again, that excitement and vigor for that candidate was not there, unlike it was for Trump, who clearly had major support.
Make no mistake about it. The passion behind Trump has always been greater than the passion behind Hillary or the passion behind Biden or even the passion behind Bernie. I mean, the Bernie people were pretty much up there as well. But the Trump that Trump crowd behind Trump, they're on a completely different level with it. But the reality of the matter is, let me ask you this question, and I wish I would have got this information, to fact check it before. But did Trump win the popular election when he beat Hillary? Because I don't think he did.
I don't think it was the popular election, which isn't a big surprise, especially in that first election. It was a big surprise, but in terms of how the democracy, if you will, the republic is organized here, ultimately is never decided by the popular vote. It goes to the electoral college.
Oh yeah, no, that's not my point. But my point is that if one candidate does not have the popular vote, it shouldn't be so hard to grasp and conceptualize that most people didn't vote for that person. I mean, we understand how the electoral college works. So the electoral college is going to create imbalance between people's individual vote. It's going to give some people's voting power greater than one, and it's going to give some people's voting power lesser than one. I mean, I understand why some people will make an argument for it, but I mean, that's the reality of it. But if you want to talk about the voice of the people, I mean, he has not been the popular guy overall. It's just that he's been very popular in his party. So I'm just saying that it wasn't a stretch of imagination to realize that, he wasn't winning these actual votes. And the further reality of it is when every single investigation into this, you're talking about the ones that the Republicans launched, the ones that Trump launched. Trump hired people to say, look, go find me some evidence that this election was stolen. They did what they did, and they came back to him and they said, we don't have anything. So that's the thing about it. He can sit here and tell you that I really believe this, but he only believes it because he refuses to accept the evidence that every single person has presented to him. There is no evidence of widespread voter fraud. That's a fact. I mean, if you want to just believe what you want to believe, you can believe that. That's true. It's just like religion. But I mean, again, none of that is factual or evidence-based. So, that's where that is.
I definitely will submit that definitely has been the narrative that's been presented, via the media, that there was no evidence. Unfortunately, it's not totally true. There definitely was irregularities that did
widespread
exist.
Widespread enough to alter and change. I didn't put let me put that category, let me put that note on it. There wasn't enough irregularities wide enough spread enough to change the result of the vote. So I'm sorry, but go ahead.
Well, it definitely didn't get changed. We got to remember the thing that the Trump admin was advocating for was essentially the whole vote back over. You know what I mean? Because of the various signs and signals and data and the irregularities that did come about from the election. Of course, when you go and fact check these things, we all no matter what side of the aisle you're on, have had moments of a disagreement with the various fact checkers that are out there. But I definitely recall seeing video of boxes of votes being thrown away that period of time,
which were proven to be false. Which, I mean, you can have videos that explain flat Earth. I'm just saying that YouTube is literally the worst thing. I understand that we're on it, and YouTube is important to us, but the reality is YouTube gives anybody to fabricate anything that sounds, some type of reasonable and some type of truthful, just because you see it with your eyes on YouTube, or you see it on social, Truth Social, you see it on Twitter, you see it on Twitch, you see it on whatever. That doesn't make it true. So I'm just saying that I'm not disputing that you'll see this type of stuff, but you do understand that none of that stuff has been substantiated. None of it. When they interviewed Trump's people under oath, they're like, yeah, nah, we just didn't have the evidence. When he went to his daughter, she's like, yeah, Barr told us that, there wasn't no evidence of this. But I mean, my dad says this, I'm rolling with my dad, which I'm not blaming her for. But I mean, I'm just saying that, I understand you're gonna have videos that show you all type of stuff. You're gonna have videos that may show you that, Bigfoot is real. But I mean, if you believe that or not, that's something else.
Yeah. I think, certain videos, maybe people could just, explain away. But then, like I said, I personally recall seeing videos where without a doubt, we saw people throwing ballots away. We saw at 1:30 in the morning out in Georgia, boxes and suitcases being pulled from underneath the desk, and then a whole additional, a so-called voting ballots, being counted. At one point there was one irregularity that was showing that there were more ballots than actually voters, but then that was, of course, explained away later on by the media, saying that, okay, hey, that was based on an incomplete set of data, and so once it got updated, then now, things were fixed right. So we're going to get into that and into this topic a little bit more later on in terms of, what are some strategies that could be, deployed in our election cycle that can ensure, that we have a more accurate count, and more and something that could be more trusted. But even going back to when I definitely had represented and was around a lot more Democrats at the time, I could definitely recall when I never was a Democrat, but I definitely leaned more that way. But, there were definitely elections, that came about to where Democrats and everyone was complaining about, some of the same problems with our election cycle, that Republicans are saying now and conservatives are saying now back then, including the various voting machines, not being, reliable, as well. You know what I mean? So, but we're definitely going to talk about later on in terms of, how can we have, what are some strategies that we could deploy to have stronger election verification, here inside of our elections, just to ensure that people feel more comfortable about that reality. And then one thing that I think you could definitely also agree to is that at that time, since COVID was in effect, this was the first time, ever that we had, and the country was so reliant on mail-in ballots. And that's where a lot of the complaints came from in terms of, from the Trump side, that there were some problems that existed was coming from, where these ballots were coming from, how secure were these drop boxes that existed, were we in fact, getting, American citizens voting, here in this election, or was there others that was coming into play, so there was definitely a lot of questions, and not all of them, ultimately were addressed, to be honest with you, but, I will submit that the fact to say that, whether the Republican side as well as the Democratic side said, hey, you know what, let's move on, and let's go. And the only person who did not want to move on, obviously, was Trump, so, clearly, that was his standpoint. Let's move in. Do we exhaust that particular topic in terms of
I want to say this about Trump. So again, and this is not a knock on him. This is probably a testament to the successful person that he's been in life. His niece, one of his nieces, had talked about, like, look, he was raised to never accept defeat. So he's always just going to deny and deny. It's just it's part of what has made him him. So on the one hand, you could commend it in different platforms or sort of different circumstances. But when you're talking about a democracy, now you're talking about basically trying to overrule the voices of the people. And I get it. You can say that, hey, we're questioning if those voices actually said what they're saying that they said, but at some point you got to go, well, look, all the evidence is showing that this is what they said when they actually did do recounts. They did that in Arizona. They hired the ninja, whatever, such and such. And they basically said, yeah, no, it was all true. I mean, literally they've done these fact checks. So I understand that some people are going to assert what they're going to assert. And it's not my passion in life to try to convince somebody that sees something that can't possibly see what I'm trying to communicate. So there comes a point in time where you just got to let it be. But the reality is, to the extent that we can fact check things, to the extent that we actually can do evidence and these things that we can check, it's been established that, the election was not wrought with fraud, and that he actually won by the dynamics and by the steps the system that's be. If they want to make it harder to do mail-in voting, one thing that they're probably going to do is, they're going to make it harder for Black people who might not be very motivated to vote, to discourage them, and that's going to de facto, increase the power of their vote. I mean, I've gone, when I voted in the past, I've literally just gone up there to the thing and say, "What's your name?" "This is my name." They don't ask me for much of anything. They go, "That's you." I go, "Yeah, that's my address." I sign on it. I vote. And that's been working for a very long time. And now when the guy that they're most passionate about doesn't win that, now there's the great scrutiny about the process. So I do agree that the mail-in thing was increased much more because of COVID. And that's the thing that they complain. But a lot of those people that was making those complaints were actually mailing in their votes just the same. So there's a lot of hypocrisy on that. But, I don't want to go too far on it. But I mean, again, I understand why Trump is doing what he's doing just because how he's raised. And I also understand what he's doing because now this is a criminal defense strategy. So he's got a lot of motivation to keep digging into this, but there's literally no logical basis behind this type of stuff. So I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. No, you're fine. That's a perfect segue to just go ahead and move in, to really the meat of the matter and the nuts and bolts. Let's talk about, was this J6 narrative of this being an insurrection? Was it manufactured, premeditated, or spontaneous? What are your thoughts, brothers?
Well, I feel like it was a spontaneous occurrence. I think it was like a hurricane or a tornado. I mean, there's things that lead to there's event A that leads to event B and event C. But I think that this was the people that were passionate about their guy. Their guys, look, we're gonna go down there and we're gonna fight like hell. I think that his whole objective was to disrupt that thing. I don't know if he really thought that he was gonna actually accomplish overturning it. I mean, I suppose if Pence would have caved in and did what he tell him to do, there would have definitely been some more machinations. I know that the army wasn't going to necessarily get behind him, at least that's what they say. And if you don't got the army behind you, you're not going to accomplish too much. But I mean, it got rabid, and that's what happens with when you have a crowd of people. That's going to happen in pretty much any type of situation where people are passionate, and once people start kicking in and busting down things and stuff like that, things just nature is just going to occur, and that tornado is going to rip up what is going to rip up. So that's what I think that was happening. And the big criticism against Trump when this hurricane, when this tornado, was playing out, was that he had the means and the voice to quell this, to bring this down. And there's evidence to suggest that he was basically enjoying this, and he was watching this, and he waited a while before he actually was forced to do something about it. But What do you got to say about this, Brother Floyd X? What do you think that happened? You think this was manufactured? Do you think this was premeditated, or just a spontaneous occurrence?
I don't think it was manufactured. I think it was a genuine insurrection. It went almost as Trump planned it, almost. But thanks to Mike Pence not being a go along, get along all the way, it was prevented by him now, because all he had to do was co-sign it, and I think they would have got a whole lot further. So, that's my opinion on that.
Yes, sir. And my thoughts, without a doubt, I'm completely convinced that, that not only was this not an insurrection, I'll give it to the fact that, we could call it a riot, but there are some facts that are surrounding this, this whole spectacle, if you will, that just did not rise to the level that they're claiming. To me, and we'll get into motives later on, but the first thing I had to look at was understanding what is an insurrection. And so when you're looking at an insurrection, just by its definition, is something to where a certain level of premeditation has to exist. The official definition in terms of the Constitution is whoever incites, sets on foot, assists, or engages in any rebellion or insurrection against the authority of the United States or the laws thereof, or gives aid or comfort thereto, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned no more than 10 years, or both, and shall be incapable of holding any office, under the United States. And so just when you start looking into that whole reality, my belief, and I know I'm not alone, especially obviously those who are right of center, is that many people felt that that Trump, if he didn't win that election, he still had quite a bit of popular support, and that if it came down to the next election cycle, they figured he would be back. And so that there had to be, some sort of a plan or strategy that existed, to where, he could be barred from once again coming into the White House, which is where we're at today. And so we're seeing every time we look around this claim of an insurrection, and Trump being a part of it, when in fact, not any of the defendants, and people who have been convicted in regards to their actions that day, at the Capitol, including Trump, or fell under insurrections. And there's very others charges that existed, that came about, but it was not one when it was dealing with insurrection itself. And then in general, when you see, this a charge come about, private citizens do not have the standing to file these charges against someone. Only the government itself, acting through the office of the attorney general, could actually bring federal criminal charges in regards to this. So it's just not something that you see that's charged, obviously, very much here in the United States. And then also, because of the strength of the free speech protections underneath the First Amendment of the Constitution, the law tolerates a certain amount of exaggerated statements or claims of political speech, where there aren't, any accompanying or overt illegal acts, in general. So this is something that I definitely do not believe was an insurrection. Now, was it a riot? Yes, I'll agree it was a riot. But then as we move forward, I want to bring up some other information that has been coming about, that's given us a better eye into what was really taking place, that day, and what other agencies within the United States government, their role that they played in it.
Okay, so I want to take a moment to address. We have a Liberty Twitcher, a person that's making these comments. He's saying something to the effect of, none of us care about the Black Lives Matter riots. First of all, we at the Focus Up family do not support the Black Lives Matter movement. We may support the sentiment that Black lives do matter, but that is not a movement that we are behind. Not only that, a riot is a riot. Absolutely. When they were sitting there burning down, police cars and stuff like that. I mean, what's illegal is illegal. None of us is saying that if you do something illegal that you shouldn't, get punished for. So that's not, and he's talking about typical leftists. Actually, as Brother Charles X has given me the proper definition, I'm right of center. So I'm not a leftist. I'm seeing objectively what's occurring. And the fact of the matter is, just because that's your guy, that doesn't make that the guy of the people. And the reality is, he absolutely did incite that riot because he sent them down there. And then once the machine started rolling, he was hesitant and waited very late to stop them. And during the course of what happened is that people actually died. So we're not talking about property damage. We're talking about lives taken. So again, you talk about an insurrection. I mean, it almost sounds like you're saying it wasn't an insurrection because it wasn't successful. But the fact of the matter is, he incited these people. He inspired them to go down there to disrupt the actually passing what the people voted for. And for the machine to actually work, the laws and all those things that play. The reason why Mike Pence didn't do what he did, because he said, look, I don't have the authority to do this. That's not legal. So he was actually not only trying to disrupt the law, but he's literally trying to disrupt the democratic process, which is one of the big things which America is supposed to be about. It looked like you said, got something you had about to say, Brother FedEx?
No, I'm listening, brother. I'm listening.
Yeah. So that's why I'm saying that, I understand. And again, an insurrection is not necessarily a bad thing if like Omar once said that, look, a lot of times for like, let's say, if you believe in what happened in 1776, if you're talking about the rebellion against the British, or the Tea Party and all that other stuff, if the governing power is doing something terrible, the people will insurrect and go against it. I get that. But, this was a situation where this wasn't a function of the government being corrupt. This was literally a democratic vote that just didn't turn out the way that they wanted. And they decided that the minority was going to determine what the majority was going to have to deal with.
Yes, sir. So just to go ahead and just some of the points that you made is first and foremost, I would say again that everyone who was there and showed up for that particular rally, they believe then and they still believe now. Now, albeit there definitely has been a dispute in regards of what are the facts surrounding if there were how these irregularities got explained away. But nonetheless, those individuals that showed up, they believe that this election was absolutely being stolen, and like any political rally or any type of organized group, that is saying that, hey, we have a problem with something, as long as it's peaceful, there's no problem. And before they even shortly after they dispersed, from that particular rally, I'm looking at a tweet right now that Trump has sent out saying, I'm asking everyone at the U.S. Capitol to remain peaceful. No violence. Remember, we are the party of law and order, respect the law, and our great men and women in blue. Thank you. And this was prior to them even being dispersed. So, the narrative that is, I continually hear that Trump himself was trying to incite, the violence that happens, when we actually go up into that day and look at exactly what was happening, everything was, peaceful for quite a while. Now there were, as now video has been emerged and let go. Before, it was for the longest time, honestly, the government, the U.S. government under the Biden administration was not letting the videos come out to show us or truly what was going on that particular day. They let out various little segments showing the violence, that occurred later on, but we never got a bird's eye perspective on what was taking place on that particular day. And once those videos started coming out, then now a better picture, was emerging. That was showing that there were plenty of people, who were there, who were not interested in breaking down barriers and whatnot, But what we did see was we saw provocateurs, or one in particular, who literally just got a sentence and with a very light slap on the hand. His name was Ray Epps. I should say is Ray Epps, where people were encouraging, people there at the rally to commit various acts of being disorderly, and ultimately asking them to participate in illegal acts, to where, they're on the scene, people were calling them out as agents, literally as agents. There's been plenty of testimony that's taken place regarding this event, like people such as I'm looking through my notes, like the Capitol Police Chief Stephen Son. He testified, that Nancy Pelosi, and others, they were denying having more people there to come to the aid of the Capitol Police because they were being overwhelmed with the various numbers that existed, that they were holding off the National Guard, from coming in and being deployed, other police resources to help, control the crowds that existed that day.
That's one narrative. That's one narrative. There's a whole nother narrative said that that's absolutely not the truth, and that they didn't have the power to control that. That's literally, you understand that she's like, she's not the person that has the power to command those people. So that's been her argument from the beginning. The fact of the matter is, the people in power to make those decisions weren't making those decisions. And you can sit here and talk about how, the agents, they didn't release all the video. When you're doing a criminal investigation, you tend not to just put everything out there. I saw that. Go ahead. So what were you about to say?
I want to ask a question to Brother Charles X.
Yes, sir.
What, in your opinion, what was Donald Trump's goal of calling people out there? What did he want them to do? Just come here and speak and then just go walk and march around the Capitol building, or what? What was the goal?
No, sir. So his goal was, again, him and others believe that the deep state, those who are not elected officials, as well as some elected officials, have conspired with others that act and was not in the best interest of the citizens of the United States. And so his goal was to assemble the people there, since he believed the election was being stolen, and to have a show of just how many people existed out there who also believe the same thing, in hopes that, that those that were, in power, if you will, and who were maneuvering this vessel in this ship, in a certain particular direction, would have pause. At the end of the day, just like, whenever, when we
Just
have
off their presence, just off of them showing up.
the president is showing the people being there and whatnot, to say, hey, we're looking, we're watching, this is a problem, and this is this is an issue.
Has that ever been enough to convince the political leaders to do something different? Has that ever been enough?
Well, in the past, we never saw anything like this. In the past, we never saw anything like this at all.
There's always violence. It's always violence.
I'll give you one example right now, to where actually more people showed up and was very peaceful, and not violent at all, and now there was mixed results, from the actions. But I'll call to the witness stand the Million Man March. We're over, some say almost 2 million, mostly black men, assemble on the Capitol on a Monday, very peaceful, and definitely numbers like had not seen before in the United States at all.
What political change did that influence?
What
political change did that make happen? It wasn't nothing political.
That's the whole thing. Now, in terms of political change, we saw some very social change that came about. But definitely, when that effort was called upon, it wasn't directed, directly at the government per se. But definitely,
that's what we're talking about right now. What we talking about
on the line that Floyd X is talking about. Let me present this to you. This is a rhetorical question, so don't answer it. How many people are there in the United States? That's rhetorical. All right. No matter of people showing up on the outside of the Capitol was going to convey you what the people were doing. There was no number that you could put out there that would make you like, oh boy, there's a whole bunch of people that are really passionate. But we know that there's a whole bunch of people. He actually got a whole bunch of votes. He got probably more votes than any Republican, whatever, has gotten before. But the fact of the matter is, that was a vote where that was a voting thing where more people showed up than ever showed up before, because they were passionate, making sure he didn't win. So my point is that, this political process, they're in the building. What does it matter what the people outside are just peacefully out there, holding hands and singing Kumbaya about? What was really making some type of an impact was the fact that they were there with zip ties, and they were there with freaking lynching things. They're talking about killing Pence. And who do you think inspired that? Was that just a freestyle machination of just like whatever? I mean, the reality was, the reason why Pence was so upset was Trump is because he literally sicked the dogs on him. And had they would have gotten him, had they would have gotten a hold of Nancy Pelosi, they probably would have killed him.
Yep.
No, brother, that's a gross exaggeration. Now, granted, the majority of the people who were at that march, that day, were there for absolutely peaceful purposes. Now,
I don't doubt that at all. I don't doubt that at all. The majority, we're not talking about, when we talk about the machine or we talk about a hurricane, there's going to be parts of it that don't affect this particular location. But the part of it that did was the part that, was the violent whatever. We understand that they believed what they believed, so you don't never need to mention that again. We know that those people were passionate about, and they actually believe that. That's not even under dispute. We also know that there were people there peacefully, people that didn't do any bad. We understand that too. What we are talking about is the people that crossed the line.
Now let me add, but now what we also know, and that is coming more increasingly, to be a fact, is that there were over 200 FBI agents in that crowd that day, dressed up as Trump supporters, that were there that day, that were on the scene. Now the question has become what was their role for being there? And we have
the answer to that.
What say again now?
Do you have the answer? What was their role? What was their purpose? What was their goal? The FBI agents, 200 over 200 there. What was their goal? What did they want to see happen?
Well, I'll tell you this. One would think that their role would be to keep the peace. One would think that would be the role of having that many plainclothes officers being there would be to keep the peace. But now what we have seen from the FBI in the past, as well as the present, is that when they're building various cases and whatnot, what they'll do is they'll take some individuals who have various issues and whatnot, who have no capabilities to pull off any sort of a crime that they might, have in their mind, and they'll go ahead and equip those individuals to actually be able to carry out their plan or the strategy that's being completely fed to them by FBI agents until where they get the button in their hand. And then the moment they push the button and nothing happens, then now a major arrest, comes about, and individuals are then, charged, with major significant crimes. And the FBI is made to be the hero for uncovering and unfoiling some sort of master plan and attack against Americans, when in fact, the plan or strategy never would even materialize were it not for their help or assistance in the first place. You know what I mean? So that is some of what is being alleged, today, is with that many agents. Now keep in mind the FBI, director, he's not confirming or denying, that there were, people inside.
I want to address that.
I
definitely want to address that. You sent me that video, and I thought it was crazy that this was like a big talking point as far as the
now. When you
people
say video, you mean a testimony by Secretary Mayorkas and the FBI director?
Yeah,
read, before congressional hearing and the Congressman Clay Higgins exchange.
Yeah, exactly. So let me clarify something that this dude says. He goes, "So, sir, will you confirm that you or didn't have like agents out there in the field?" He goes, "Look, I can't speak on that." He says, "So you can't speak on it, tell us." He goes, "Look, I can't speak on that." He says, "But let's skip to you're basing this on my testimony that I'm saying that I can't speak on this, but I'm telling you that none of our people were encouraging or doing any of that stuff." So there you get the testimony, because the reality is, look, we understand that if you're a police chief or a detective or whatever, and you got people out there that are doing, secret stuff, that are basically in what they call, what I'm talking about, when you have people undercover, you're not going to share your hand and just be like, "Oh yeah, we had this guy, we got this guy." There's certain things that you're just not going to tell. It's just like
not
a
doing
football
active
game.
investigation, for sure, not doing active investigation. But now we're talking about after the fact.
No. Well, I'm talking about even you. There's certain things that you won't give out just because it's like a coach. A coach is not going to tell you his strategy, and he's not necessarily even going to tell you after the fact, because he might employ that same strategy at a later point. So he's going to get to the meat and potatoes. That just because I'm not confirming or denying that I have people out there, I've got people all. It's like Game of Thrones. He may have spiders all over the place, but if he's telling you, look, if you're relying on my testimony, I'm telling you that none of my people were inciting this thing, none of my people were inspiring this, none of my people were encouraging this thing. So there you have his testimony. So now. Based on
brother. I'm about to say, yet we have video to where we did see various provocateurs inside of the crowds, directing people, to do and commit illegal activities,
that were not FBI agents. That were not FBI agents. Yeah, they were not FBI. They actually got in trouble because one dude got convicted. They were saying like, "Oh, this guy was a plant, this why, whatever." And then they did the, all the history and the search on him. It's like, no, this is a regular guy that you guys. He was one of your passionate Trump supporters, but he was the guy that you guys threw to the wolves just because you need to make a boogeyman excuse of this, Antifa type, dynamic.
Well, let's address that, because the person you're talking about, his name is Ray Epps, and this is a gentleman that was a former oath keeper who just pleaded guilty last year to misdemeanor charges of disorderly conduct, and then he received a year of probation, a $25 fine, a $500 restitution, and 100 hours of community service. Even though it was being recommended by the prosecutors that he should face actually at least a year in prison.
Because he was snitching. Because he was snitching.
I wouldn't say he was a snitch. What we did see was that at every flashpoint, there's no person that's on film that it appeared in more flashpoints, meaning before events of violence, erupted. There was no one present at as many of these flashpoints as Ray Epps. Now, was he an FBI agent? No, I don't think he definitely, I don't believe was an FBI agent. Now, was he an informant? You know what I mean? Was he a provocateur? You know what I mean? There's definitely, you know, that's what the community absolutely believes. And then when we see him on video, you know, during this event, and actually encouraging what he was encouraging, and then to where live on the scene, you have people calling him out saying, hey, look, man, this dude's an agent. Why is he asking you to go over here and do this and that and the other? You know what I'm saying? You know, when it's illegal. Agent. This is live during the event when there were actually real supporters in the crowd that was actually, you know, trying to get people not to be engaged in violence, you know, and actually.
And there were people fighting, saying, hey, no, let's not do this, brother. Hey, such and such. So again, we're not denying that there were a lot of sensible people in the crowd. But again, I want to point on, you keep talking about belief. You know, I understand that people have a belief and the passion and all this other stuff, but belief is not excuse. You know, a female can say, hey, man, this dude raped me, you know, and you go do something to this dude, and it turns out he didn't rape you. Just because you believed it, it's not a free pass to do whatever you want to do. I mean, you're still an adult. You still have accountability. You still understand that you can't go breaking into a facility. You know, you can't go trespassing. You can't just because, hey, this is my country, I can do whatever. No, you still have an intelligent basis as an adult to understand right and wrong as far as breaking in and the damage and the stuff that they did and fighting the cops and all this stuff. So I mean that occurred. You know, that's just the reality. It occurred. You
walk to that Capitol building, and then somebody puts a pickaxe in your hand and you bust out the window. You are responsible.
Yeah, you don't find any disagreement for me to say that anyone who was involved in committing a violent act, you know, on that particular day, you know what I mean, you know, should not have been prosecuted. That's not my argument. But the whole thing is the confusion that surrounded this event, the lack of preparation for this event. When the Million Man March occurred, my goodness, you're talking about they had snipers on the rooftop. You had the National Guard already in place. You know, you had a number of protocols that the government had deployed, you know, for that particular event. Whereas it wasn't even being labeled as, you know, any sort of violence, you know, or a history of violence. It wasn't, you know, they may have had some performance among the brothers or whatnot, but everyone, you know, many people expected that event to erupt into something that it nowhere near erupted to at all. Now, coming into this J6 rally, the president himself was already publicly letting, you know, not only the world know, but also the various officials know that, hey, look, you know, we have a chatter among various groups like Antifa and others who are saying they're going to come to this event and cause trouble at the end of the day. And this is publicly. You know what I mean? And so, you know, how we could come to this event now to where a lot of the world and others are expecting there to be, you know, this to be something, you know, more than just a regular rally. Why was there not the level of preparation, you know, there present for this event? You know what I mean? Because it was
not anticipated. It was not anticipated. It wasn't organized. He literally sent them. He freestyled it and said, "Hey, you guys are here. You guys, everything was event A." He made a decision to go, "Hey, let's do event B. Everybody's doing event A. Let's go do event B." So you're talking about their preparation and stuff like that. Put it this way, they'll be much more prepared next time just on the principle of what they learned from what happened then. But this was not an organized event where, you know, the Nation of Islam is telling you, hey, we're going to do this. Hey, everybody, let's organize and do this and have this peaceful, you know, gathering at the Capitol and do all of this stuff. So everybody knew that was going to happen. This was something that this tornado just set down.
But that's where I have to push back and disagree is, without a doubt, like I said, I'm looking at public tweets right now, you know, that Trump communicated to the world, as well as what's going on behind the scene for this particular rally, is people knew that there was a disgruntled voters who believed the election had been stolen and that this whole event was being billed as Take Back America. There was all the agents, were already in place, and observing, various factions, of the right-wing political groups. This is nothing, that's abnormal. Right-wing political groups being observed by federal officials. That's something that has been going on. So people knew that when I say people, I'm talking about those in authority, those in charge, knew that this event had the potential, to explode, if you will. There was never any doubt. That's why even in advance, according to the Capitol Police, chief, he had already was requesting additional and more resources in advance. But every time you looked around, he was being denied. He testified before Congress, that this was the case. Names were being named. He was denied at every single turn. So now we get to this day in this event, it's here, and sure enough, there ends up being, some violence that takes place. But like I said, it wasn't something that where people headed down to the White House or to the Capitol, and then all of a sudden, a violence just erupted and people start breaking through windows and whatnot. This was something that, that build up. At first they build it up, according to like videos now that we have, to where the crowd itself, started, having shots fired, fired at them, where people who were trying to peacefully keep their own constituents in check, and them getting shot in the face with rubber bullets.
Again, and that's one side of organizing of the video. And there's other side of video that suggests that that's not the proper sequence. And the fact of the matter, this stuff was, I'll remind you, this stuff played out live.
Yeah.
So we actually saw how it played out live. And a lot of people that are sitting there trying to revise what happened now, they weren't saying this stuff back then. They were saying it and it wasn't just because now they got more facts. It's just because now they have an incentive to take this position. But the reality is this thing unfolded how they were folding. There wasn't a faction of, even if the crowd is threatening you or yelling at you and you start firing back preemptively or whatever, you can talk about whatever, but the bottom line is we know that the sequence of that stuff, again, and you talk about Trump, that he sent out this tweet, there's evidence that they had this whole, you talk about congressional hearings where they were actually bringing in the people that were with Trump, and they're all like, yeah, we're trying to get him to do something, but he wasn't going to do nothing. He wasn't doing, he just whatever. And we're trying to like, hey, you need to whatever. And even his wife is ultimately like, hey, you need to do something about this. I'm not talking about just sending out some tweet. I'm talking about actually getting in front of a camera and actually doing something. Because that's when people were like, hey, this is Trump. This is the master. He's saying, disperse. And that's, and that's when they just started to disperse, not to mention the fact that, people actually were dying and getting shot.
He could have called the National Guard to get order.
Yeah, he had the power. Pelosi didn't have the power to do that.
Unfortunately, he didn't have the power, and that's what these congressional hearings revealed, that he did not have that power because he was already requesting, and we have live tweets. So that's the whole reason why you gotta remember, when Trump got on Twitter, the main reason why he did so is because he wanted to have a lot of his actions, already on the public ledger and record, so that later on someone couldn't say
that's automatic.
You're literally saying the president can. Yeah, you're literally saying the president can literally send the Marines into a country or whatever and stuff like that. You're telling me he could? Yeah,
and unfortunately, those laws are not. You can't do that in American ground.
But you think Pelosi? But you think Pelosi had the right to do that?
No, Pelosi, she was the
she had the authority to do it. She had the authority to call in the Capitol
at that time, and so there's definitely approvals that need to take place from her office, for sure, in order to deploy the National Guard on in this particular type of situation. That's not something that the president has that type of power that he could just do.
So when they sent the national, go ahead.
Are you saying that she did not want them to be deployed?
That is what people absolutely are saying, that she did not want that to happen at all.
looking for her to do harm to her, and she did not want to do it.
I mean, from what they say, I mean, we were told that as what was happening. But again, the majority of that crowd, like I said, if this was spontaneous, then people, aren't coming with supplies ready to go and kidnap, members of Congress.
They have
now you're talking about more premeditated.
They have supplies.
If that's the case, what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is that, if the intelligence agencies, they have been monitoring, various groups, all throughout, the election cycle, approaching that election cycle. So they had intel, they had data. Like I said, they had agents that were there and present and within these various institutions. You know what I mean? But yet, even with the intel that they had and knowledge that they had, coming into that event, there was not the level of protection and security, for that on the Capitol grounds. You know what I mean? It wasn't present. And like I said, we have many police officers from that day on the Capitol Police who expressed the same thing, feeling that they were set up for failure, and put in a predicament, to where, they were not safe. And they have come out and speak on the same situation. It does not make sense, to where in this event, they did not have the level of security and the level of support, to be ready for any and everything. It's not, when you're dealing with law enforcement, they're not into fair fights, if you will. They will overwhelmingly stack the cards, in their deck, to where they have an inordinate amount of power and support, just again to even, act as a deterrent for people who will be looking to, push a situation further, if you will. And that was not present that day. So the question becomes, why?
Did Trump have the power to weaken the security of the Capitol?
No, Trump didn't have the power. In fact, like I said, there's tweets to where Trump himself came out and said, I am looking, we need to have more support here on this rally. We have Antifa and others, who are going to be coming in order to disrupt this event and cause violence. In advance. See, but before in the past, all we were relying on is what he was telling, other people within government. But because he went on Twitter, and now this is something that is timestamped and that the whole world can see, then now, it's in plain sight.
So what you're saying? So what you're saying is that he was trying to send the Capitol. He was trying to send the National Guard through Twitter.
No, what I'm saying is that, is that he was even protecting himself from the fact that, others couldn't come out and say that he did not want more support.
Check this out. Brother Charles X, you're saying that he's trying to protect himself on Twitter. Trying to what he should be doing. I'm just trying to get you to understand what he's saying.
I'm gonna speak slower and plainly so it'll be easy to understand. Is right in the past, if a politician came out and made a statement and he's talking to various people within these within government and different requests are being made, there is nothing to where in real time, that can be verified.
Of course,
what I mean. You had to go solely based on those channels that these things were being requested. So the fact that not only did he go through those channels to make various requests and whatnot via his administration, but simultaneously, he had his whole administration, he took to Twitter and also was detailing moves and decisions that he was making, requests that he was making on the public ledger, which is timestamped so that the American people themselves could also see, that what his actions were. And what I'm saying is that
it's his administration. It's his administration. You tell me he's not going to be able to he's not going to be able to substantiate what was actually occurring in his administration with the people that he's informing. That none of these people are saying that, oh yeah, he was doing this.
From the gate, if you recall, is Trump. And many of the Trump supporters from day one said that, look, they are against what is called
a deep state.
The deep state. Those which are people who are not elected officials. And then we as black people should know this shouldn't even be a surprise to us. To say that they're
built-in excuse
in the government who plan and strategize, who don't act on behalf of all the public's best interest. He said that there were people there among him, including what ultimately became Vice President Pence, himself, what I'm saying, that it was not, for the American people, but been bought out by special interests. For example, while the Democrats were complaining about Russia, here inside of America right now, we have AIPAC and Zionist organizations that have put hundreds and millions of dollars into the election cycle to influence our public officials to make decisions based on what is in the best interest of Israel and not in the best interest of American people.
Hey, brother Charles X, I don't doubt at all that every other sovereign nation is putting resources into whatever nation that they can influence to have an impact that's going to affect them or do something.
Not only sovereign nations, but also corporations.
But I'm just saying, we know exactly. We understand exactly how that stuff works. But a lot of this is going to be a built-in conspiracy excuse for whatever plays out, because the simplest explanation is going to show you that you're talking about he wanted to have a track record. You know what his track record could be? The actually going on the video and the thing that they were pleading him to do was to go actually make a speech and say something, tell people whatever. So that when they're talking about him not doing something, they're saying that the thing that he didn't do was go out there and actually make a speech so that people could see, like, hey, you need to stop doing this. And when he ultimately did that, that's when it got taken care of. So you can talk about these tweets, and stuff like that, but these tweets are not admissible in the court of law. It's his arbitrarily saying this is what I'm doing. This is not proving that what he's doing. Right. This is what he's telling you what he's doing.
That, brother, and I know we're reaching the end of our time, but let me address that. As I recall, in the past, one time when the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan was asked by certain elements to go to the gangs and ask the gangs to quit being involved in certain illegal activity, and the minister looked at them like they were dumb to say, hey, look, I never asked for them to be involved in that activity in the first place. So what I look like going and asking them to do something that I never told them to do. You know what I mean? And so Trump stood from the gate to say that, look, he promoted for this rally to be peaceful, you know what I mean? For there to be no violence, respect law enforcement. And so then now you have a group of individuals that are, and it's not obviously nowhere near the whole crowd, you know what I mean? But there's a small percentage of individuals who are there, you know what I mean, who are not a part of that rally, and not following the message that was given from its leaders and acting, in a illegal manner. You know what I mean? That is a matter for law enforcement, but still he went out again and reinforced, via how most people follow Trump has always been via social media. It has not been by him being on the news or whatnot. Even when he does live video, it comes via social media platforms. So he went on those same platforms, reiterated once again, the call for peace, and not violence. But again, the people who are involved in that violence were not part of
go there and
movement in the way that's being promoted by Trump, nor any of the people protesters that were there that day.
Go there and fight like hell. You keep talking about how, look, there's no question that they weren't prepared enough to deal with what happened by virtue of what actually happened. We saw it. They weren't prepared for it. But the reality of it is they were there for event A. Event A is what everybody was there for. Trump freestyled and said, let's do event B. That's what happened. So when you're talking about that's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened.
I have his whole speech. I'm looking at his whole speech right now, and then just how he ended his speech that day. He said, so we're going to walk down Pennsylvania Avenue. I love Pennsylvania Avenue, and we're going to the Capitol, and we're going to try and give the Democrats who are hopeless. They'll never voting for anything, not even one vote. But we're going to try and give our Republicans, the weak ones, because the strong ones don't need any help. We're going to try and give them the kind of pride and boldness that they need to take back our country. So let's walk down to Pennsylvania Avenue.
Did he walk down with
thank
them?
you all. God bless you. God bless America. Thank you all for being here. This is incredible. Thank you very much. Thank you. You know what I mean? That's how this speech goes.
Did he walk down with him?
No, he didn't walk down with him. From my understanding, you know what I mean.
He went to his bunker.
The people walked down. He was.
Wait. In fairness to Trump, he did try to get the driver to drive over there, and they were like, "Yeah, no, we're not doing that." So he did do that. But again, we're about the comment about go there and fight like hell. You saying that he didn't say that?
Well, no. So yeah, sure, you said to fight like hell, but to say to fight
And
like
they
hell,
fought like hell.
Not telling one to go and
When you-
incite some violence. You know what I mean? Fight for your rights, fight for what you believe in and whatnot. But that doesn't mean to say that we're you to go and harm police forces. Break the windows of the Capitol or whatnot and everything.
And hang Mike Pence.
Is
And hang Mike Pence. And hang Mike Pence. And hang Mike Pence. Where did that come from?
What do you mean hang Mike Pence?
Did you don't think that they were trying to? They literally erected.
You breaking up, Mr. Nice Guy.
Mr. Nice, there you go. You're back. You're back, brother. You're back.
You breaking up, brother Yusef. Welcome to the show, brother. Are you there?
Yes, sir. I had a hard time, but I'm here, brother.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Can y'all hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear.
Yes, sir.
We can't
yes,
hear you.
So we're starting to wrap. We're starting to wrap up right now. But brother Nice, you wanna? We can't hear you.
We can't hear you.
The brother said something about hanging Mike Pence.
Yeah. You want to, as we close up the show, brother? You want to go ahead and make some comments while we try to get
hear me now, right?
Nice,
Well, I'm here.
Yeah, there you are.
Okay.
He's back.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Mr. Nice. We lost your last.
For all intents and purposes, I finished. I basically said it all. I'm just saying that he did try to join the people. And I'm not saying that he was encouraging them to do the violent things that he did. I don't know if it served his purpose for them to do that. But when you if you have a dangerous animal and you don't chain it and you release it and you direct it to go somewhere and it does something crazy, you shouldn't be surprised because that's what a rabid crowd will do. So it's going to happen whether it's going to be for our causes or for their causes. Now we can talk about how peaceful the Million Man March was, but that was something that was really organized with the intention for peace and controlled and managed for the purpose of peace. And they probably had informants in the crowd too, but none of that stuff happened.
Yes, sir. So why don't we close out and allow brother Yusuf to go ahead and make any type of closing comments based on what he's heard or anything he wants to add to the dialogue, and we'll wrap up.
Well, my apologies for my tardiness, my brothers, but I heard he mentioned Mike Pence, and I'm assuming they're talking about January 6th. Mike Pence were on the side of Nancy Pelosi. He received a special coin when he went along with their programming while they were there at the Capitol. And if you go back and look at all the data, all the videos, you'll see that he received this coin in his hand. And this coin gave him freedom to do pretty much whatever he wants across the United States of America, like Nancy Pelosi and the other high elites. So Mike Pence sold out Donald Trump. That's what happened. This whole thing, I'm not sure if you told him about Hegelian dialectic. I'm not sure if you guys talked about that aspect of it. But this whole thing was a stage, my man, Mr. Nice Guy. The whole thing was a stage. So I don't know how far you, Brother Charles, explained that with you brothers. So I'm just chiming in very late.
Yeah, so you saying there was a magical coin that allowed him to do whatever he wanted to do?
Well, the magical coin is saying, hey, you has been accepted. It is not a magical coin. It's a coin that I'm going to get the picture of the coin in some of my archives, and I will send it over to Brother Charles. He'll send it over to you. But those who go along with certain programs, it's almost like John Wick. Have you ever seen the movie John Wick? No. I mean, you might laugh at this, but you will see that he's receiving this coin in his hand while they're at the Capitol. And when he went in and overturned the decision of Donald Trump in this voters fraud situation, that's when he received the coin after he finished speaking. A lot of folks forget all about what January 6th was totally all about. It was all about going and hearing about the fraud that was taking place in Pennsylvania, Arizona, and Georgia. We didn't get a chance to hear that because of January 6th eruption. That was orchestrated
wait. I'm just trying to make sure. I'm not trying to interrupt you. I just want to make sure I understand what you're saying. You're saying that the January 6th rally, or you're saying that the January 6th was what? Are you talking about what was going on outside of the Capitol versus what was going on inside of the Capitol? Did I lose you? Did my audio go out?
No, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Yeah, we hear you. You said you still there?
So the reason why.
Okay.
Yes, I'm here. So the reason why Donald Trump was day because they was having a hearing that day, and a lot of people forget about what was supposed to took place that day. It will be the hearing of Pennsylvania, Arizona, and Georgia fraud. They found fraud in their system. So
Do you understand that they had
based on the
many?
Constitution,
They had
so
many trials. They actually had many trials about this fraud stuff that they actually did not substantiate.
brother, we understand that, but that's after January 6th. We have to understand something. When you
No,
talk
no, I'm
about
talking about
America as a
before January.
corporation,
I'm talking about before
no, sir,
January 6th.
no, sir, no, sir, no, sir. You got to go back and do your due diligence. Now, we might have media chat. You might have the media tell you multiple things. But when we're looking at actual facts, you got to go do the real research and see what
I'm
really
talking about
took
hearings.
place.
I'm talking about actual hearings before January 6th.
And that's why they were there, because they were that, and that's the reason why they were there on January 6th.
You say they. I'm saying you say they. I just want to understand. I'm saying who the they is. I'm not really trying to cut you out, brother. I want you to know that I have the utmost respect for you. So I'm just saying. No, I'm just saying. When you say they, are you talking about the people inside? Because I didn't hear your answer to my question. You talking about the people inside the Capitol,
the people on
or
the
people outside?
The people on the inside. Listen to me very carefully. On January 6th, it was a hearing that was called by Arizona, Georgia, and Pennsylvania. They were supposed to hear what happened in their election process in their states. Based on the Constitution, if there's any fraud in any federal election, they must do a recount. The Democratic Party not want to do a recount because then they have to investigate the ballots, investigate. So when Trump came, Trump said, hey, trying to steal.
Damn, we lost the brother.
Hey, because he's saying that, but there's an actual track record that a lot of this stuff was disputed beforehand. Recounts that actually had occurred. The election was in November, so the whole thing about January 6th was certifying the results. It wasn't about discerning that, because they actually went through and they had a bunch of actual hearings. You can go check the record. This is not just a function of video fabricated. These hearings actually took place, and it was disproven. So I'm just saying that you're going to believe what you want to believe. There's people that are going to believe that the earth is flat. There's people that are going to believe whatever. It's not my business to try to convince someone, that sees that. But I mean, if you believe that really there was like some coin that she joined some type of Illuminati, you saying you can't hear me?
We can hear you. We can hear you.
Oh, we can hear you.
If you're saying it's some type of Illuminati type thing, and again, I'm not saying that that's not true.
Now we can't hear you.
Right, now we can't hear you.
Okay, yeah, but now I'm back. But I'm just saying that it's probably very highly unlikely. I'm just saying that when I'm trying to discern what's most likely the truth, that's like an absolute reach for me to just accept it. It was just some coin. Okay, now you're part of the brethren, and he's still basically talking crap about all of them. He's still hating on them. He's basically still holding Trump, even though he didn't give Trump that victory that Trump wanted. He was still apologizing and making excuses for Trump for a bit after that, even though he wasn't talking to Trump, because he was upset that he had basically put his life in danger, because his life was actually in danger that day. But I mean, I've really said all I need to say on it. Again, I have the utmost respect for you, Brother Charles, of course, Brother Floyd X, and Brother Youssef. You know what I'm saying? I love to hear what these cats got to say, the further details. But again, I hate to use the word conspiracy, but I always say that the simplest explanation is usually the proper explanation. And sometimes you got to do a smell test. And I'm just saying that a lot of this stuff doesn't pass a smell test. And we know that COINTEL really did happen. We know that they do put agents and stuff like that. We know that a lot of the stuff that a lot of these people are arguing that actually happened in the past. But what we don't have evidence is that it's really a prevalent issue in the issue of whether there was this widespread voter fraud. And go ahead.
You want to wrap this up, Brother Charles X?
Yeah, yes, sir. And just in closing, I would just say, that the one thing that we can agree on, and that I believe, and regardless of the reasons why, is we never saw a presidential candidate like Trump, who both from Republicans and from Democrats, the opposition is so high. You know what I mean? So I think there's definitely something there to be explored. You know, we're not going to be able to get a chance to explore that anymore, you know, today. But I definitely would like to thank the brothers for participating in the dialogue. You know, I think it was a good dialogue, and we hit some of our objectives in terms of just, you know, having this discussion. And that's pretty much all I had to say, brothers.